Our last speaker today is Keith McCuen, President of Roland Safe and Security Lock Company. As president of Roland Safe and Lock, Keith McCuen is a visionary in the security field and is always looking for the best way to stay ahead of the criminal. His vision and expertise have led to patent new technologies in security to help deter the restaurant and retail losses. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, his knowledge in loss prevention has been shared across several security presentations and industry news sources, including RFMA's Facilitator magazine. Please join me in welcoming Keith McCuen.
Thank you. Can I read that on the internet? Is that printed on the internet? It sounded good. You believe everything on the internet, right? So, what are we here today for? How many of you know what this has in common with security? What? Layers, that's right. Begin with the end in mind. So in security, what happens, well, we usually get called in on investigations, doing some sort of forensics, usually after something's happened. And depending on what industry you're in, sometimes the results is good, sometimes it's not so good. Simple things that will tell you about saving costs is that don't make yourself an easy target. By increasing the lighting, something as simple in your parking area or just keeping the lights on in your facility is a deterrent. As we see throughout the industry, most people who do not have the lighting, they become the easy targets. Both in the front of the store, the back of the store, or just hanging out outside the cars or the doors waiting for some opportunity for someone to walk in. Another thing that you'll see out there is video. A lot of people install video. People will ask us what do we think about it. One of the things we'll say is that you'll get out of your video what you put into it. If you're not going to monitor it, if you're not going to observe it, if you're not going to use it for training purposes, don't waste your money on video. And here's some reasons. Most people buy video and they'll place a camera in the facility, put a couple of monitors up, and let people see what's going on. That's great. Most people walk into the facility, they see themselves, and they wave. You know, get a smile out of it. What happens is that most of these are not even monitored. They're not even looked at. A lot of them have old technology. The tape doesn't work, and when something happens and the officials come in, they want to look and do an investigation, you don't have adequate material to any sort of prosecution. What we've seen also with videos is today everybody walks around with something on their app. They have an app. Most of these, what happens is that once you have an app, I don't know how many of you go to the local big box retailers, I'm not knocking them, they have great products, but they're easily compromised. So if you're going to invest in security, if you're going to invest in the cameras, make sure you stage it correctly, put it in a good place, and use it for training. If you start using it in a training aspect as opposed to trying to catch the bad guy, it brings more awareness, and people will start talking about it. It filters out through your community that, wow, they have camera systems. Instead of trying to catch the bad guys, they tell us how well we're doing or how to improve something. Just that word of mouth is better for you than any other technology that's out there when you're using the cameras. Simple doors and locks. How many times we have the opportunity to go out and look at a facility and one key operates everything? Or the poor guy has all these keys walking around and only one key still works, all the locks in the place. What usually happens is that we get into these areas, and what we see is no one really knows how and what the security needs for the facility. Not everybody's familiar with the level of safety and concern of how the means of egress is really important to you, how you can get fined with that. Having properly lighted signs that say exit, having all functional door hardware so that the means of egress is properly notified on the walls, doors, to your employees. Very important comment here. If you go and Google Houston right now and look at a city fire, the CEO of the company is going to jail. He's going to spend 2 years in prison for a simple reason. He did not adequately train his staff in the event of emergency. So when everyone was outside, he didn't know the head count. 3 people went to a door that was locked. They lost their lives. 4 firemen went in to try to save the people. They lost their lives. So please make sure all your doors and locks are operating properly. Staff, how to deter. How does this help you? Anytime you have staff that greets people when they enter your property or enter your facility, that brings awareness once again. It's a deterrent for people walking into your facility. They don't want to be recognized, no more than the camera, no more than the staff able to have facial recognition. This is one of the best deterrents you have in any of your facilities, is making sure your staff greets everyone that walks in. When you're doing all the emergency planning, most people are planning for this with security, either burglary or armed robbery. Most people forget about this. Once again, putting your facility together with the security, with the lighting, and having an emergency plan is very important. This is what most of you guys in the LP world is the unknown cost, what happens. When you have one of these, make sure you have a plan. And what we mean by this is if you ever experienced any of these, it's chaos. It's controlled chaos for certain authorities that they have proper communication. But how many of you have a plan in the event one of these happens? It's costly, not only when it occurs, but how soon can you get back in business? How well is your business interruption plan? And last, having a team that you can put into action. This is required. If you start reading all the requirements that your insurance puts out there for you, anytime you have some sort of emergency, you're supposed to have teams that you can place into action in all of your locations. That includes point of contacts when emergency responders show up, if there is a life safety accident happening at work in the office, or if you're having a challenge on the floor if you're managing a facility. You're supposed to have all of your members trained. This is all very costly to you. Last, most people use these units. One of the things that we've been seeing a lot lately is the cash management. Everybody talks about that. Cash management is not new to the industry, but we have a saying that we call unauthorized profit sharing. And that means that your members, that once you introduce this into your facility, majority of the time they'll say the cash management solution does not work. The cash management solution does work, it's just that it affects their unauthorized profit sharing, meaning that they're taking stuff out of the till to pay for a tire, pay for a car, pay for babysitting, and then once they can figure this out, that they can't beat the system, your cash management solution starts working. And last, this is begin with the end in mind. So everything that we just talked about was starting from the perimeter, getting down into the interior. All of these little things is the unknown that you have to protect and try to, look into the crystal ball and hopefully you stage everything properly. In closing, I'd like to say this. I'm not as good as Michael. I feel like I was the closing credits for your presentation. But anyway, guys, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show in the evening.